Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the movie theater to watch the Apollo 11 documentary movie. I wasn't thrilled about watching it, although my mom kept on saying that it was going to be interesting. Well, I didn't enjoy it that much, although what I watched has been an event that has made history and that it is not talked about as much as it should. The first time that a man stepped on the moon. Now, I would like to share that story with you, but I wanted to do it in a more precise and interesting way. Well, that is what I will try to do. To show you how the Apollo 11 mission took place, I had to use several materials. I made the rocket, which is called Saturn V, with cardboard paper. The background paper is made to represent the space. The moon floor was made with grout. The quantering scene was made with plastic and cardboard paper. I won't show you how I made everything, because it would take a great part of the video. But I'll show you the mission, how it goes to the moon and back to the earth. But I promise to make it interesting.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
160 seconds after takeoff, the 5 powerful F1 engines ran out of fuel and they got decoupled from the rocket. At this time, the Saturn V uses 5 J2 engines to continue reaching altitude at higher speed. For you to understand, the Saturn V is divided in several parts to start decoupling during the trip once fuel runs out. During takeoff, it uses all the fuel on what is called Stage 1 and Stage 2. Now the rocket looks like this. To summarize, this two part took off, and this top part is known as Stage 4B. The instrument unit where the lunar module is, the one that will reach the surface of the moon, and the Apollo spacecraft, that is where the pilot is, and it is the part that will return to Earth. But let's go back to space. For the Apollo program's manned lunar missions, it is mandatory that all Apollo spacecrafts must remain for 3 hours in an orbit called a parking orbit, at 215 kilometers altitude. A parking orbit allows time for spacecraft checkout while it is still close to home before committing to the lunar trip. During those hours, the crew prepares the equipment, calibrates the instrument, and verifies that the trajectory they follow is the correct one. Meanwhile, the mission control team verifies the location of the spacecraft. They give instructions to the astronauts and they receive the data of 15 tracking stations scattered all over the planet, which have to be perfectly coordinated. Once Apollo 11 completes the second orbit around Earth and the astronauts finish their tasks, Houston gives the order to put it on the translunar trajectory. The spacecraft turns on its engine, to which there are still 60 tons of fuel that still remain in the tanks, and the rocket is accelerating 45,000 miles per hour. 3 hours, 14 minutes after the Saturn V launches, and on its way to the moon, the transposition, docking, and extraction maneuver is performed. This involves separating Columbia from the spent S-4B stage, turning around in a complicated maneuver, and docking with Eagle still attached to the stage. This maneuver lasts about an hour, after which the S-4B is detached and pushed away and the mission continues. On July 19th, after Apollo 11 had flown behind the moon out of contact with Earth, came the first lunar orbit insertion maneuver. Later, they did another maneuver to enter an elliptical lunar orbit of 62 by 70.5 miles where no lunar gravity perturbations could affect the following LM engagement and docking after completion of the lunar landing. Now, Commander Neil Armstrong and Lunar Excursion Module, or LEM, pilot Buzz Aldrin moved from the command module in the LEM, completed the 13th lunar orbit, and when they are on the other side of the moon, where communication with Houston are interrupted. Mike Collins, pilot of the Columbia, activates a disconnection mechanism and the Eagle begins to separate from his travel companion. With a few shots of the position propellers, the Columbia retires, allowing the Eagle to perform the complicated maneuver of descent towards the lunar surface. Little more than half an hour after disappearing through the hidden hemisphere of the satellite, communication with Houston are restored and the crew confirmed that Apollo 11 is orbiting the moon. To begin the lunar descent, the LEM engine is started only for less than 30 seconds, and its power makes it possible to leave the lunar orbit and start a slow fall towards the moon's surface. 15 kilometers from the moon's surface, mission control indicates that everything is ready for the final maneuver, which consists of activating the LEM engine for the second time. After the maneuver, they use the engine of the LEM to push themselves and allow themselves to be attracted by gravity until they land on the Sea of Tranquility, which is what they call the place where they managed to land.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
In Houston, it's 3:17 p.m. on July 20th, 1969. The Eagle is perched on the surface of the satellite. At the moment of contact, the descent engine has only about 30 seconds of remaining fuel landing at 38 meters from a crater with a diameter of 24 meters and several depths. The schedule for the mission called for the astronauts to follow the landing with a 5-hour sleep period, but they chose to begin the preparations for the extravehicular activities early, thinking that they would be unable to sleep. 6.5 hours after the moon landing, the astronauts are ready to leave the LEM. The first to do so is Armstrong, who, while descending the ladder, activates the television camera that will broadcast images to the entire world. Once this is done, he describes to Houston what he sees and what he steps on the ground at 9:56 on July 21st, 1969 Eastern Time. And he says the famous phrase,
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, man.
at first for safety, the astronauts were attached to a cord attached to the LEM. When they saw that there was no danger, they took it off. Armstrong takes photographs of the surrounding landscape and later takes samples of the lunar soil. Meanwhile, Buzz Aldrin prepares to leave the LEM in the same way as his commander. The second on board goes down the ladder, looks around, and then exchanges the following conversation.
Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
On July 20th, 1969, the American mission Apollo 11 placed the first man on the moon. The commander, Neil Armstrong, and the pilot of the LEM module, Edwin F. Aldrin. When the Eagle module lands in the Sea of Tranquility, live images are followed on television by millions of people. The mission, the fourth of the Apollo manned flight series, initiates human exploration of the moon. The astronauts traveled the land for more than 2 hours, collecting 22 kilograms of samples of soil and lunar rocks and installing scientific instruments to detect earthquakes, solar particles, and a laser reflector. A total of 6 space missions went to the moon, and 12 astronauts worked on it. The last of them, Eugene Cernan, did it in December 1972.
Streets full of people, all alone. Roads full of houses, never home. Church full of singing, out of tune. Everyone's gone to the moon. Eyes full of sorrow, never wet. Hands full of money, all in debt. the moon.
We'd like to give a special thanks to all those Americans who built those spacecraft, who did the construction, the design, the test, and put their heart and all their abilities into those crafts. To those people, tonight we give a special thank you. And to all the other people that are listening and watching tonight, God bless you. Good night from Apollo 11.